Hey everybody, it's Joe Cronin from The Joe Cronin Show and Corrupted Nation. Hope you guys enjoy the following podcast. And if you do, please support us on patreon.com/Joe Cronin Show so we can continue making videos like this. But also on the Patreon, you get a bunch of bonus content you can't hear here. Again, if you like the content, think about supporting us there. And otherwise, enjoy the show.
Let's just start by saying there will be many spoilers. Of course, right here. Wait, this is the best part. Ah, yes, you love spoilers.
I'm just kidding. Okay, so here we are with this. Oh man, I'm not like I'm losing my voice. So I'm not losing my mind like some people are about Game of Thrones, but because to me, I just see it kind of as a weak ending a bit, an unsatisfactory weak ending. That's how I see Game of Thrones ending. Obviously, all spoilers here. This is just for the people that really, really want to hear this. I'm assuming there's 10 to 30 of you out there. Everything that was wrong with some of the previous episodes of this season are all still wrong with this one, and are mostly what this one is. Peter Dinklage steals the show. This becomes kind of like the Peter Dinklage show, actually, to be honest, at the end here, which is interesting. Jesus, I don't know what to say. I mean, I basically think that it just feels like they rushed everything. They tried to swerve us. I didn't think they would really swerve us, though, because I really thought that you kind of had to go by the books, or at least what George R.R. Martin was going to do in the new books, right? I figured, well, everything that happened here basically has to happen in the book, because you can't have something different happen. So I'm assuming that Bran would become the king, even in the books. But I'm assuming that, perhaps Daenerys doesn't really go full crazy like she did, or she goes crazy, but there's more of a buildup that makes sense. And then on top of that, maybe Jon isn't sent away to the wall, but maybe he goes there on his own. I don't know. Whatever. It's just, to me, like the ending is so different. You go back and watch episode 1 and it's just so different. It was, I just basically feel like it was an ending. Game of Thrones was an ending, and it was, to me, like some kind of closure, and it was the end, and I felt that they did wrap things up, sort of, but my feeling coming out of this is kind of like a little bit unsatisfied. You know what I mean? Like, everybody was sort of wrapped up, but like in a bad, not in the best way. You know what I mean? Like, like Jaime Lannister, was wrapped up in a way that kind of makes sense for him, I guess. And he's one of the ones that I give them a pass on the most, even though, like, obviously, like, he had this whole redemption thing coming and stuff like that. It's like he was a little bit bad, but there was a little bit of goodness in him too. Like that was kind of always the way he was. He looked after his midget brother, and nobody else did. And he did that. Even when he pushes Bran out the window in the first episode, he kind of sort of doesn't want to at first, And then, of course, Cersei's like, he knows, he's like, I heard you the first time, It's like, he doesn't really want to do it, but he does it. But so he's always this kind of bad guy, but he's got a good voice in him. Some people are good and they have a bad voice in them. Well, he's more of a bad guy with a good voice in him. And that's how I see Jaime. And so he kind of sort of finishes that way. But I don't know. But again, his ending could have been an 8 out of 10. It could have been a 7, 8, 9 out of 10. And his ending kind of fizzled at a 3 out of 10, crashing, being crushed by bricks. I thought obviously, like, Bran doesn't he becomes the king, but doesn't get a full satisfying ending because we still don't quite understand what the hell was going on with him. Like, what was he doing? He never warged into anything that we could see. Like, maybe he could have warged into the dragon. Maybe at the end, when everybody, because like at the end when Jon kills Daenerys, the dragon's like, and then instead of killing Jon, it just burns the fucking throne, right? Well, maybe they could have explained that better if they had, like, Bran, like, focusing somewhere, and he wargs into the dragon. I don't even know if you can warg into a dragon. I'm not the best at Game of Thrones lore. You guys out there would know better than me. But why couldn't he, like, warg into the dragon? And maybe you can't, and if you can't, then I'm wrong. But if you could, why not have him do that? And then he, like, kind of controls the dragon, for a second to make him miss. I don't know. And he kept telling everybody, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. It's like, did he know all along because he wanted to become king or something? Like, is this guy a bad guy? Like, what's going on? What happened with the whole, like, oh, God. All the good ideas that there were basically weren't done. And it feels like wrestling. It feels like Vince McMahon. It feels like, Vince McMahon was like, they know about what we're going to do, so let's do the complete opposite thing. Yeah, but Vince, for 3 months we set this up. Yeah, but they know about what we're going to do, so we're not doing that. It's like when you build a guy to win up for 3 months, and then the fans kind of figure it out and people start talking about it online, and then Vince goes, you know what? Let's just have Brock Lesnar show up out of nowhere and win it. No one will see that coming. That type of thing. That's fully Vince McMahon. The other thing are the parallels to this and Star Wars Episode 3. You know what I mean? This is Anakin Skywalker going crazy. Daenerys is Anakin and Jon is Padme. All of a sudden, Padme, after seeing him acting kind of crazy for a while, like, I want this perfect world where, everybody can be perfect and everything else like that. That she finally sees that he's crazy. And he's like, I love you, but yeah, we're going to rule the galaxy together. And we're going to bring freedom to the Republic and everything like that. And Padme's like, what the hell? You're crazy. Like, I can't. This is crazy. The only difference is, that Anakin, like, gets really pissed at Obi-Wan and then they fight. But, here Jon has basically had to see her act crazy again. And she's like, oh, the wheels are made to be broken. We won't stop at any of the realms until everyone's free. And the fuck does that mean? It's what you said about this place we just burned to hell. So, but why did Daenerys flip like that? She had not mentioned any of this stuff recently. It would have made more, it would have made more sense if Daenerys was like, I fooled all of you. I knew that I couldn't tell you what the real plan was because you wouldn't have the courage or whatever to go through with it and wouldn't support me. I knew that I had to come off as, whatever the hell. And then that would have been more believable because you would have been like, oh, she was keeping it from everybody. She was pretending. And she's like, yeah, up until this point, I made sure to only kill armies. That way I accrued sympathy. I knew that I couldn't get sympathy if I had killed anybody that was innocent, but nobody is truly innocent. because with what's happened, that type of deal, that would have made more logic than what happened. You know what I mean? And even that would have been horrifying for people. So to me, I'm not the craziest Game of Thrones person, so I'm probably less upset than many other people are. But visibly, I mean, you can't escape the fact that these episodes this season were just... I mean, I actually liked everything up until after Arya killed the Night King. I even liked Arya killing the Night King. The thing I didn't like was that Bran had no involvement, it seemed like, in that. I wish that, you know, that Bran had some kind of story besides just sitting there like a lump of shit and then always saying stuff. I feel like his backstory in the books are going to be so in-depth that there's going to be a hell of a lot more explanation. But I feel like the show needed that explanation a little bit to validate certain things. Tyrion was the star of this episode to me. I liked them sitting down at the table at the end discussing things. That was a funny scene. It was meant to be that way. They needed some kind of funny stuff because the whole episode was very bleak and depressing and sad. There is no throne. That's the funniest thing ever to me. We thought that might happen, and it really did, and I started laughing when it happened. That's kind of how I felt about this. I was like laughing at parts almost. But some parts were sad, so it did work. But like they did a good job of making me like feel what they were doing anyway, even though I know it, like to me it doesn't make sense. And you know, John, a lot of stuff is left open. A lot of what Bran did or it can do and whatever, that's left open-ended. Jon Snow at the end, you know, going into the forest with the wildlings and the wall, and that's all left open. Like, what's he really doing? Like, what's happening there? People are debating that. You know, what was the whole point in his story of who he really is? And now he's like basically back to where he was, except he knows the truth. That's the funniest thing. He's literally back to where he was. He ends up, Jon Snow ends up, everybody ends up back where they were almost. That's what happens in this show. I just realized that. Daenerys is gone again because she's dead, right? The dragons are gone apparently. Bran is just, I guess, back to as normal as Bran could be. Jon Snow is back to being kind of a banished bastard. Unbelievable. Tyrion is back at is going to be back at King's Landing in a bigger role than he had before, but pretty much he had the best growth. He was the one. If you cared about somebody, it was him. And even he, you know what I mean, obviously made big mistakes out of character of himself because he was so smart. And he made some really stupid mistakes at the end. And he referenced that in this episode a lot, but basically everything kind of ends up back to where it is. I mean, our Arya goes off somewhere. That's kind of the story of everybody. Everybody kind of goes back to where they were, but yet goes off somewhere. Arya goes off somewhere. Jon Snow goes off somewhere. What the hell I don't know. The dragon went off somewhere. We didn't even get that closure. We just get a mention. Oh, what about Drogon or whatever? And fucking Bran's just like, I'll see if I can find him. Like, what the hell does that mean? And if he could warg into a dragon, why not do that? Why not have that the reason why Jon wasn't killed? And then when Bran says that at the end, you that makes more sense. You're like, oh shit, he controls the dragon now. That makes sense why the dragon wouldn't attack them or whatever else. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about this. This is just an initial thoughts that I'm spewing out to you right now, everybody. I think there's some people out there that this ruined stuff for them, the series. It didn't ruin it for me. It's just disappointing how it was rushed and it made the least sense of anything that had been done yet. But also it's fitting in a way because this is how I've always seen the series. This is why I at first didn't want to watch Game of Thrones, because I don't like so much murder and killing and horrible stuff and bad, you know what I mean, bad news. It feels like I'm always watching bad news with Game of Thrones, and that's what makes me laugh a little bit. And it almost makes me happy in a weird way that some of the people that love this show are mad now, because I was always mad from the beginning. You know what I mean? Ned Stark, when he's killed, like, that made me angry. I know it's the whole catalyst of the whole thing, but you know, I've been angry since day one, and now these people die, and now that person dies, now they kill a kid, they kill this guy gets mangled and tortured. Like, this show is awful. This show is fucking awful. Like seriously, it's depressing. And it ends in a depressing kind of way. So it kind of, to me, is like fitting. Isn't this what this whole thing's about? Like, feeling horrible about everybody dying and then seeing people die? When does anything really redeeming happen? Other than Jaime Lannister's few seasons of redemption. But in the end, he just goes back, you know? I mean, but you know what? I feel like that's a human thing that would happen in real life. I feel like a lot of us in real life wouldn't just go, okay, I'm redeeming now, and I'm Jaime Lannister, now I'm going to be better, and now all of a sudden I'm going to sleep with this giant lesbian chick, and everything's going to be great. It's like, no, you would do exactly what Jaime did. You'd feel bad about things. You'd try to be better. Then you'd sleep with Lurch, and you'd be like, you know what? That just ain't Cersei's pussy. And you'd be like, listen, I gotta go. I had fun, everybody. I gotta go. And then you'd go back to Cersei, and then you get buried in a bunch of fucking bricks. So I mean, that's really more human than anything. But I don't know. I don't know what to give these episodes and series. I would say Game of Thrones up until this point was like an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10 for me. You know, I mean, I think I like Star Trek better still. Star Trek TNG seasons 1 through 7 better. And the thing about Star Trek TNG is it got better every season. So Star Trek The Next Generation got better every season. And they were standalone episodes, though. They weren't like continuations. So it's much harder to do a continuation like this. But you know, that show got better and better and better. And by season 7, when it ends, you're like, oh my God, no, it's over. And I missed these characters, and I can't believe it's over. Whereas with this Game of Thrones, it just kind of fizzled out with a confusing stare. It's very strange. So I would say if the previous episodes and seasons were 8s and 9, you know, I'd probably say in between an 8 and a 9. I'd say this season is probably like a 6.5 out of 10. You know, to me. A little bit confusing, a little bit underwhelming in some ways, shocking in other ways, and yeah, I'm just I'm not very happy, but I'm kind of like, oh, it is what it is, I guess. And we'll move on from here. That's what I think. I'll have more later. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll have more for you guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon.